Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center, and this is a show dedicated to helping you work on your business and build what I refer to as the premier accounting firm, offering quality accounting services and getting you paid what you're worth. It's here on the show that we actually have guests on each and every week where we actually discuss the various things that you need to be considering, whether it's marketing, selling, pricing, perhaps it's things related to onboarding your clients, tech stacks, maybe it's training your staff, client retention and relationships, mental health, just a variety of things that you need to be considering. This show is actually hosted by Universal Accounting Center. Universal is a post-secondary school for accounting professionals to help you actually focus on the things that matter most in building your firm. It ranges from working with the business owners yourselves, as well as training your staff to offer quality accounting services. The training ranges from bookkeeping, accounting, QuickBooks, tax, just a variety of things that you would expect in order to offer the premier accounting services. Now, as it relates to today, I have a guest on that I'm very excited to speak with. This is someone I've been looking forward to discussing a variety of things that relate to our mental health. It's Andrew O'Brien. He is the founder of the Mind Blowing Coach, a business with the sole mission of boldly and authentically partnering with individuals and organizations in sustainably transform whatever chronic stress or burnout is plaguing them so that they can actually live the life with more meaning, purpose, energy, health, and joy. Now, with more than 25 years of relevant experience, Andrew holds an MBA in HR management, a BA in communications, and is credentialed as a professional certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, National Board of Certified Health and Wellness Coach, and Society for Human Resource Management Senior Certified Professionals. In addition to offerings that he actually works with adults. He has a virtual one-to-one life coaching service, individual workshops and group workshops. The Mind Blowing Coach also partners with organizations, both personal and virtually, that are looking to incorporate impactful, healthful, and well-being events through presentations, workshops, and classes for their employees that are specifically centered around the topic of stress and stress relief. So, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Roger. And I'm all good with mind flowing too, because that's what it's all about.
There you go. Now, regarding this, I'd like to get a little bit of a backstory. Give me some context as to what even brought you to this point where you became a life coach and really found it important to work with people as it relates to stress.
Yeah. So how did I get here? I was never the kind of person who was able to I call it master our stress. I didn't know how to master my own stress. And
were you an anxious person?
Anxious, yeah.
Okay.
I kind of like became this kind of like perfectionist as a way to fit in.
Okay.
To like that's how my brain told me to kind of fit into this life, and I became that perfectionist, and that created a lot more pressure for myself, self-initiated pressure, which is not sustainable, and yeah, that led to anxiety, that led to all sorts of different physical stress symptoms, emotional stress symptoms, behavioral stress symptoms, all the things.
Interesting. Was there an OCD element to it?
OCD, I would say yes.
How about scrupulosity?
What's that?
Scrupulosity, where you're fixated on various things, kind of, as I understand it, it's basically looking at if-then type relationships. If I do this, this might actually happen.
Maybe subconsciously that was happening.
Okay.
But more of like what I had the awareness of, like different behaviors that I did with respect to, I'll just throw in an example there, clothes, and having a certain number of a kind of brand clothes
Okay.
in my closet. So like everything had to be like a certain number of whatever that thing was.
What was the number?
10.
10. So you needed 10 of everything. You know, I've actually heard the phrase 1 is none, 2 is 1. What was 10 to you?
10. It just seemed like that solid number, and I felt comfortable in that number.
Yeah, it was probably more of this is complete. You've got enough.
And when something like, I don't know, if one of those 10, something happened to one of those 10, like I would just feel incomplete.
Interesting. Very, very good. Okay, so you found this within yourself. So then it obviously pushed you to learn or study and understand yourself. Am I understanding that right?
You 100% are understanding that right. And it didn't happen like overnight. It was piecemeal through many years. And
What was it like to get these insights as it related to you? Was it helpful?
100%, because I am a science geek, and I really, really want to get to a space where this is baked into our education systems. Uh, all of this science and how we can master that stress. That's what I missed out on. And so what I did over the years, I would be exposed to different pieces of the science. Maybe it did work in that moment, but then over time, like it just like dawned on me. There was a moment where I was like, wow, there is so much science here, and how easy would it be to kind of streamline everything into one spot? And so that's what drove me to kind of keep doing what I'm doing.
You know, I can relate a little bit to this. I remember some books that I was reading that were very insightful to me as well. One was Psycho-Cybernetics. The other was Critical Thinking.
Yeah.
I think there was one called As a Man Thinketh. But the point is it's kind of like doing those personality assessments. For some people, it might even be like a tarot card reading or looking at the zodiacs, but it's essentially, oh, I can identify with this. This is kind of who I am. And it's almost like looking in a mirror. You're able to get a little bit clarity on what's going on inside your own mind. Would you say that may be similar?
It is, I don't know what the word, like, ironic that you said the word personality, because like most recently, I have been doing a lot of work with personality types as it relates to how we master our stress as well. And like, did you know 40 to 60% of our personality we're actually born with? The rest of it's kind of filled in by environmental influences, how we're raised, how we're conditioned. So we are both nature and nurture. And if we have a very clear understanding of what our nature is, like what we're born with, we could do so much with that from
Yes.
a stress mastery perspective. And so I've been incorporating a lot of that into my work as well.
I love it. So, what was the transition between you were doing this initially to learn about yourself, understand yourself,
Yeah.
to where you got to the point where you wanted to take this to the masses, start a business, working with others? What was that transition between this is nice to know for me and I'm feeling better about myself to I'm going to help now other people?
Yeah. Uh, Fundamentally, I love helping people. Before my coaching career, I was in HR for many, many, many years, and I got into HR for two reasons. One, uh, my dad, who is quite a successful executive, said that I would be good at HR, and number two, I do fundamentally love helping people. But that HR world, I learned, was not for me over many years. Of course, not for me. It did lead to one of the things that led to my burnout was spending so many hours a day doing something that I just wasn't fueling me, and in fact it was like draining my soul.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so selfishly in the beginning, it was like, what can I do to eliminate my physical, my emotional, my behavioral stress symptoms? Because like I know life has to be better than this experience. And once I figured it out, once I put all of that science, all of those pieces together, I learned that it worked for me. And then from there, I made the decision. I was like, if it worked for me, I want to see if I can support other people. And that's what kind of drove me in the direction of starting this business to support those people and organizations.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's get into the business side of things because that's what my listeners are really going to be interested in. Clearly, they're owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. And as owners, we're dealing with stress. And as I've coached so many a business owner, what I've found is as much as we want to talk about the business side of things, so often the personal creeps in. There are a lot of things that are impacting their success in business that are within themselves. It's how they see themselves and their role within the world and how they interact with other business owners. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, and it's all at the personal level that these things exist. So I'm curious, what basically is the thing that you need to focus on as a business owner? I know you talk about stress and burnout. Maybe we need to begin there. What is stress and burnout as you see business owners working in their companies?
Yes. So stress is a part of us. Like, so I want to say that up front. We are human. We have a brain, and we have that little amygdala in that brain that is basically the center of our fear response. That fear response is very much connected to our nervous system, and because we have this in our biological bodies, we're never going to be able to get rid of our stress response. It is something that we want, because what that amygdala does, it scans for threats, and will tell us what to do in milliseconds if there is a real danger out there, right? So that's whether we run, flee, fight, freeze, whatever response that might be for you, whatever response that nervous system might be for you, that is going to happen. We want that to happen. The thing is with the amygdala and that scanning, it doesn't know the difference between real or perceived.
Yes.
And so often we are taking in these perceived threats as real, actual dangerous threats, and we're not allowing ourselves to get back to that homeostasis. And so that's where chronic stress comes in. That's where burnout comes in. And so the whole goal is to kind of get into the flow state of life, right? Because we're going to have those ups, we're going to have those downs, but ideally what we're going to be doing is enjoying the ride up, enjoying these highs, and then when those obstacles and challenges come, we like a roller coaster is the analogy that I kind of share here. Like you go down, and what happens in a roller coaster? You don't get stuck in that trough. It goes pretty quickly through that. And that, when we're mastering our stress, that's exactly what this flow state looks like. And so, number one, stress, we want that. It protects us. We don't want to get rid of it. Number two, we want to also be aware of, are these real or perceived threats? Let me filter out the perceived threats. Let me focus on those real threats, and work to achieve that flow state of stress. Where it becomes chronic stress and burnout, chronic stress happens if that stress response system is activated for longer periods of time, and we're talking like weeks.
It's when it's persistent. It's that constant state of chronic. Yes.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like when our nervous systems activate, when that stress response activates, cells from different parts of our body are actually called to support that stress response system.
There's a physical response.
There's a physical response. And so let's just say, I'm making this up. Let's just say that you have some cells like supporting your kidneys. Those cells are going to be diverted to supporting the stress response, mm-hmm. In some way, shape, or form, and taken away from their primary job and responsibility of supporting those kidneys. And over time, that, we were evolved to kind of handle the short-termness of our stress response, not the long-term stress of it.
So there's a few things here I want to highlight because I think they're very, very important. First and foremost is the real versus perceived stress. I think it's very natural to understand that a lot of the things that we experience in our lives may be contrived in our own minds, and they're not really what's happening. We're making it worse than it actually is. We're building something up in our minds that's really not true. And I think one of the things that's very healthy is to understand, can you see when that's actually being done? Do you recognize within yourself when you're contriving something that isn't really true? And that's one of the things that I think a healthy individual is able to do, is step back from the situation and realize, I think I'm making a bigger deal out of this than there really is. And we're all experiencing this. We're all going through and we're considering different things, but at an emotional level, is it real or contrived? And one of the things that I think is more often is it's made up. It's something that we're building in our minds. We're letting our minds get away with it. And the second thing that I'd like to point out is it's healthy to have a way to actually make it so this isn't chronic. It shouldn't be a long state of time in which we live in that stasis, because one of the things that's very, very important is the body's reaction to this. It's actually having a physical reaction when you're in that constant state of high stress. And so recognizing that you shouldn't exist in that state continually is very important, because I agree with your comment at the beginning. Stress is a good thing. It's a motivator. It's something that actually causes us to be more heightened and aware. But at the same time, we need to be able to manage it. And there's, various things that individuals do, whether it's relaxation, meditation, yoga, and so forth, to try and get back into that more equal state. So I'm curious, with regards to stress and burnout, do you see, when is that period where stress turns into burnout?
So I see it as like an evolution. So you have that short-term stress, and then when it gets to that chronic stress level, that's like if we're not mastering the stress, and it's ongoing, persistent, activated for weeks. That's what I would define as chronic stress. And then if we kind of continue with that, that's when we kind of hit that burnout stage, when you're just like completely just tapped out, which I was there for sure. You feel like you're just out of control. You feel like nothing is possible. You feel like you're on that hamster wheel, and you just don't know how to get out of it.
Well, perhaps can lead even to a panic attack.
Could lead to a panic attack. Well, yeah, exactly. And these are signs, right? The signs of when we are not doing a good job here. And I'm totally throwing my, for most of my life, I was not doing a good job with this because we weren't taught this stuff. It's the physical stress. Like if you are in pain, if you are in and of course you're ruling out medical situations for sure, but there are a slew of physical stress symptoms, whether that be headaches, skin rashes, some cancers even. I even experienced eyesight loss in my right eye. It's called central serous retinopathy. That was a diagnosis I got. And that's like when the nerve, the optic nerve, like bunches up like this and fluid forms under it, and it blocks your vision. I thought I was losing my sight. So I checked out that with an eye doctor, and he let me know, are you type A? Are you a perfectionist? Are you type A? I was like 100%. He's like, okay, chill out, you'll be fine. And I chilled out, and that nerve kind of got back straight. But the unfortunate thing is, like, when that got back straight, like the vision is not what it was. So I still have like long-term effects of that, even though like that nerve is still straight.
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes to mind that I'm familiar with is hypochondria is where you actually self-induce the symptoms of the various things that you're concerned about or worried about. So, I mean, clearly we can get into the medical side of things, the psychology of all this, and dive deeper into this. But I think the reality of it is we're all dealing with it, and we all need to come to some way to manage it. And I think we first begin with the idea of there is a healthy element of stress. So starting with the fact that some stress is okay is a good place to begin. Chronic isn't what we're wanting. So we want to find a way to sever the systematic or the systemic nature of it so that it's not constant. And then the next thing we need to realize is if it persists, we could get to a point where it will burn us out, and that there are physical components associated with stress, that it is having a negative impact on our body in various ways. And we can talk about those at length. So I guess the question I want to come to is, why do we experience all this? Is there any reason as to why we're causing this to ourselves?
My answer to that is yes. And why we are experiencing this increasingly is so many reasons, but I'll streamline this. Number one, we are bombarded with information. More so than I kind of always talk about, like the cave people days. Their access to information was way limited. They were mostly contained in their groups of people. They did not know what was happening in the state next door and in the country overseas. They did not have access to the news. They didn't have access to all of these like social media platforms. Our information bombardment is a real thing today, and yeah, there's a lot of pros to that, of course, but going back to that scanning, right? There's so much perceived negative stuff that we're allowing into our systems, and that I believe is one of the main reasons why we are where we are from a stress and burnout perspective.
Perfect. You know, I really appreciate the fact that you addressed, I think, one of the key elements to this, which is the negative information that's flowing around us. And I think it's very important when I hear people say that they intentionally start to not necessarily shield themselves, but they stop actively pursuing these negative things. Some people, turn away from social media. Some people stop looking at the news because they realize that some of these things are triggering them. And so what we look for then are, how do we actually find ourselves in a better, happier state? What are the things that I can do to proactively put myself there? And that's when you start to hear people speaking of, I'm going to start with mission statements or affirmations. I'm going to begin with a daily routine of meditation and prayer. You've got things that people then intentionally are doing to circumvent this vacuum that sucks us into the negativity around us. Is that resonating with you?
It is absolutely resonating with me. And the point that I want to make there is that the key is to find out what works for you, right? And so I've streamlined all of this science, right, into 10 buckets, and that is applicable to everyone with a brain, because it's very much founded in brain health. When we optimize that brain health, we're optimizing our nervous systems. That's what it's all about. So that's applicable to everybody, those 10 buckets. But then how you apply these 10 buckets is going to be personal and individualized. So someone might not like to meditate, and that is 100% okay.
Yeah.
What can you do instead? What
Yeah.
will work for you instead? Yeah.
Well, before we go there are two things that I'd like to do. First of all, mention that one of the things that I personally do is find a way to laugh. I want to be in a happy state. And so I consciously try to find ways in which I am able to chuckle and laugh and find humor in things. And so if I can actually get that laughter to come, I find that I have a relief, and that release that I'm experiencing is, therapeutic to me. And so I am consciously trying to find things that are humorous and fun. But the thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the 10 buckets is, what are some of the misconceptions about burnout that hinder our ability to manage stress? And I want to talk about those before we get to the buckets.
That stress is a bad thing.
Oh, okay.
We touched upon this already. Like, stress
Yeah.
is something that it's a part of us, and I want, like, if you are someone that's experiencing burnout right now or chronic stress, please do not judge yourself. Please do not judge yourself negatively. Please do not think that anything is wrong with you.
You're not broken.
You are not broken. You are absolutely not broken. This is just your body, your nervous system, doing what it does, as a way to protect you. And as we know, we're not evolved to kind of sustain that long-termness of a sustained, like, stress response. We're just not built for that. So yeah, you are not broken. And I think a lot of people who are experiencing this chronic stress and burnout, they have a sense of, like, defeatedness.
Yes.
And I think that is, if there was one misconception that I want to bust, it's that one. You are complete, you are normal, you are healthy, you are a human. And yes, we can apply and all of this amazing science, because that's how we master it.
Yep. One thing I'd like to add to this is a phrase that I learned, and I use it very often, especially when I'm working with my clients and friends and family. And it's this very simple phrase of, you are enough. And I want that to sink in. You are enough. There isn't anything that's lacking. You're not broken. You are enough. You are a good person. And in my context, my frame of reference, I see individuals as children of God. And so by seeing individuals that way and seeing myself that way in the mirror, I think we can have a little bit more patience and sympathy and more or less a compassion for one another. And I think that's very important to start from that context. So one thing I want to point out, and I just want to break in at this point and mention that if anyone, whether yourself or family or friends, are in not just a burnout state, but you are feeling defeated and broken, perhaps even suicidal, is to call 988. It is the hotline that you can actually take advantage of, and in reaching out, get some professional help and support. And I would definitely encourage everyone, just like 911, have that at the ready to share with family member, friends, or even for yourself when you get into that point where all of a sudden you feel like you are broken and defeated, and you are in perhaps that suicidal state that comes on so fast. But we just need to kind of break that. So just kind of a segue there. But real quickly, do you want to say anything there about that, or anything else before we go into your 10 buckets?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo that. Like, asking for help can be very vulnerable. And I want to acknowledge the vulnerability in taking that step for yourself. It takes whether it's easy to show it or not, it does take some courage to do something like that. And so, but I promise you, if you're hesitating because of that, I promise you that the person on the receiving end is there truly as a support system. They are there to support you through whatever it is that you are going through. And whether you're going for more of that like clinical support, or whether you're going on for more of that coaching support, we are all here for you. And that's what I want to say. Acknowledge that vulnerability, acknowledge the courage it takes to reach out, and to just have hope that on the receiving end, you're gonna get connected with someone that you do connect with, and get the help that you're looking for.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah, let's take this now on a happier trajectory. Let's turn this a little bit and give it a little bit more energy. How can we live without chronic stress and burnout? How do we actually transition here and perhaps get into those 10 things that you were alluding to?
Yes. So I could talk for days about all of these 10 buckets, but I'm gonna streamline this into just some highlights here for you.
You've got less than 20 minutes.
Thank you kindly. And I'm actually going to start one of the 10. You already called it out, Roger.
Uh-huh.
And one of these 10 is all about that laughter. It's all about that having fun. And what's happening physiologically when that's happening is changes to our hormones within our systems. And so cortisol is one of the stress hormones. And when we have fun, when we are laughing, that cortisol level drops. While those other, happy, uplifting hormones are on the rise in our system. So if you do feel like you are feeling good after a good laugh, like that's physiologically like why you do feel good. And so I also acknowledge, like, if you are burned out on that struggle bus, like where I was for a long time, maybe you're like, no, laughing is not possible right now. Mm-hmm. I encourage you just to pull out like a sitcom that maybe you loved back in the day, or like a stand-up show back in the day. Put that on. I'm not a big fan of like endless scrolling on social media, but I will say those IG scrolls, when you get into the funny ones, like there have been moments I'm on my couch, like tears are coming down my face because I'm laughing so hard. So that's another option for you. I promise you it is possible, even if you are struggling with this right now. But yeah, that bucket is it's number 10 on my list, but I wanted to start there because you already called it out.
Very good. Well, let me just add, when I'm working with individuals who are dealing with stress and they are in this dark state, one of the first things I suggest is, what is that fun thing that you like? And it's typically a sitcom or a movie. And I say, you got to go put it on. You got to go watch it. You have to actually just get back into that. And that escapism that you can experience by going into that sitcom or that movie or whatever can actually be a relief. And it's interesting. The change that you physically will have, your status will be different upon finishing that episode. And you can go and watch, 2 or 3 or 4 episodes, and an hour or 2 later, it's amazing how that status of your being has now changed and evolved. And so highly recommend it. Okay, so that's number 10. We started at the end. It's almost like we're doing a David Letterman countdown here. So what's number 9?
Yeah, number 9. Well, I'm going to go back to number 1.
Okay, number 1.
Number 1 is all about, like, this might be the quickest way for us to signal to the brain to get back to homeostasis.
Okay.
And that's that conscious deep breathing. Doing that regularly throughout the day. And this is something that I continue to work towards right now during this podcast. Like, I'm shallow breathing 100%. And our brains actually use approximately 20% of our total body's oxygen supply on each of those inhales. And so even mild deprivation, we're experiencing that like fatigue. Like it's going to impact that brain for sure if we're not consciously remaining aware of those refreshing deep inhales. Yeah. I'm not going to get into all sorts of different breathing methods because there are a ton of them. I encourage you to take a look what's out there. There's a 4-7-8 method. There's a box breathing method. There's just like the deep breathing method. But the idea is to kind of bring those inhales down to the bottoms of those bellies as much as you can throughout the day, because your brain will thank you for it.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I believe in a panic attack, isn't that the first thing that they tell someone to do is to focus on something and start emphasis or focus on visually something, but to focus on the breathing and it's to slow the breathing. I think that's one of the things that they're actually taught when dealing with a panic attack. So, anyways, I think that's very relative. Let's go to number two then.
Number two, all about hydration
Hmm.
and that water intake. And we're not talking water like mixed with any sort of like added sugars or anything. Just like the maybe you infuse it with cucumber or fruit, whatever. That's totally cool.
So
But
the CO2 combination that I do with my Diet Dr. Pepper doesn't count?
correct. That's not what the brain is loving. The brains also, did you know fact? Our brains are approximately 80% water, which is insane.
Hmm.
And if we're not maintaining the hydration, we are going to experience this chronic stress or over the long term. And
Yeah.
there is no solid guidance from the CDC at this current time. I don't think there will ever be because we are all different. We're different shapes, different sizes. We sweat differently. We're in different parts of the country with different temperatures. But I did connect with a couple of different nutritionists who did not know each other, and both of their recommendations for their patients on the hydration level is to keep your to see if you can maintain a pale yellow urine color throughout the day. If you can
Correct.
do that, then you are adequately hydrated.
Yeah, it's the clear urine is what I understand.
Pale yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's number three?
Number three, nutrition. This is a biggie. Nutrition is a biggie. I mean, these are all biggies, but nutrition, and I'm not going to get into the right diet. There is no right diet. Speaking of nutritionists, there's not a common agreement across all of these nutritionists, but what there is common agreement on is what I'll share here, and this is what the CDC shares. We need to be optimizing those vegetables, those fruits, those whole grains, the healthy fats, the lean proteins. We need to be staying away from those added sugars, those added salts. We need to be limiting or avoiding the alcohol intake. Did you know, getting back to the physiology, uh, about 95% of our serotonin, which is one of our feel-good hormones, that's actually produced in the gut. Our gut and our brain are very, very intimately connected. They're constantly talking to one another. And if that serotonin does not have the opportunity to do its thing, and it's only getting that chance with those nutritional foods that we're putting into our systems, it's not going to be able to kind of produce that serotonin in the way that it wants to. And so that nutrition is a big factor here.
And what we're talking about isn't the comfort foods. We're talking about healthy foods.
Yeah, like those processed foods, like it's just it's poison for us, and I know that's so hard for many to hear, myself included. I am a sweet tooth. Treats are okay, right? Once in a while, a treat is totally cool, and I've created a routine around that. But like if we're consistently going to these as our nutritional staples, it's very detrimental. It's going to lead us down a dark path for sure.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. What's number four?
4 is all about that physical activity. What we're doing there when we're human, we're born to move, we're meant to move. And when we do move, we're increasing the blood flow, the oxygen to our brains. We're also increasing our capacity to learn and for that memory. And the CDC guidance here, again, I'm focusing on healthy adults between 18 and 65. There are other populations, so if you fall outside of the healthy population group, please check in with the CDC to see what those recommendations are. But from the healthy population perspective, it is at least 150 minutes across the week of cardio, moderate cardio, or 75 minutes, at least 75 minutes of more of the vigorous cardio activity, plus 2 days of more of the muscle resistance training.
Yeah, looking at the accounting professionals, so many of us have a sedentary work environment. We're sitting a lot. And so one of the things I always emphasize is just getting outside. Some people call it grounding, where you take off your shoes and you go into the grass and put your feet into the soil. One of the things that I think is very healthy there is getting out and getting the vitamin D as it relates to the sunlight. It's just getting outside. And we spend so much time inside that if we can just get outside, I think we can just take in that fresh air and really kind of enjoy what nature has to offer. offer. And so it's got that active state. So I think that's one of the things that I would contribute to that. What's number 6?
And on that point, there's so many different ways that we can move.
Mm-hmm.
So many, even throughout our busy days. And yeah, to your point, Roger, get creative with it. Get creative with it. And anything that we do for movement is movement.
I just had a conversation with a friend. Zoom, I could see a walking treadmill that's at the desk, and he was walking while he was talking to me on Zoom.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can be creative.
Totally. Cool.
Yep. What are we on? 5, 6?
5. 5 is all
5.
about sleep. And sleep, another biggie. What's happening here? So during the deep parts of our sleep cycle, which happens if we're getting that consistent regular sleep, it happens maybe 2 to 3 times over the sleep cycle. The primary thing that's happening there, that glymphatic system activates. If you don't know what the glymphatic system, that is a system that flushes out all of the dead neurotransmitters that have accumulated throughout the course of the day. Out of our brains, into the bodies, out of the bodies. That's what it does during the deep parts of our sleep. So if we're not getting that consistent regular sleep, it's no wonder why we're waking up feeling groggy, like you're hitting the snooze button at least 10 times, having low energy, not wanting to do anything. It's again,
the 6 hours I'm getting aren't enough.
According to the CDC, we need to be getting at least 7 hours of consistent regular sleep. So it might not be. Some people require less. Some people require more than that 7, but that CDC magic number is at least 7. And if you're struggling with this, some recommendations to optimize that sleep hygiene is think about your sleep environment. Like, is it dark? Is it quiet? Is it a temperature that you feel good at? Like, you don't want to be waking up like freezing in the middle of the night. You don't want to be waking up like sweating in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So,
and they also talk about avoiding the television at night. They talk about avoiding the cell phone. The ambient light that comes from that can be harmful right before falling asleep. And I'm horrible because I'm typically on my phone at the last. So,
yeah, especially the phones and the iPads and the laptops, the ones that are closer to the eyes. Because that technology is basically telling your brain to stay awake.
Correct.
And there are technologies to put stuff over your eyes or over the screens, but at the end of the day, that it's still getting into your brain.
Yeah.
And so the TV's at a distance, not as impactful. The sounds might be like when we're in the middle of our sleep, but yeah,
to fall asleep to the TV. Yeah.
Not doing vigorous workouts like right before you go to sleep, not eating heavy meals right before you go to sleep. Those are other things. And of course, if you snore, I always say don't ignore that snore, because it could be a simple fix there, and it could be totally a whole new life if you get that fixed, if you do snore.
Oh yeah, sleep apnea. It's a big thing. Many people have it, and to use one of the devices, machines, and so forth, definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I think we're on 7.
6.
6. Oh my heavens, we've got only a few more minutes.
Yes, 6. But we already did 10, so only a few more left.
All right.
So 6, we got gratitude. Gratitude is also another impactful domain, and this, you're literally reshaping different brain parts to support you. When you are chronically stressed, by the way, / burnout, your amygdala expands in size. Where 2 other brain parts, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, these are parts that are connected to executive functioning, rationale, logic, positive emotions, they shrink in size. What this gratitude is actually doing, you're doing stuff for you. This is a totally selfish thing, and selfish is a really good thing in this context, because you're changing those brain parts to support you. And so we're not talking hours out of the day, folks. A consistent 5-minute practice each day can make a world of difference from that perspective. And there's so many different things that we can be grateful for, whether that's people, pets, ourselves, or material things. I could go on and on and on, but I know we're running out of time.
I happily embrace this one. This is one that is a game changer for me. When I was younger, I was a pessimist. I now consider myself an optimist. In fact, I'm probably overly optimistic on things in many ways. But the thing I'd love to highly recommend is for the people I work with, I always recommend going through or doing a gratitude journal and every day writing down 10 things for which you're grateful and you cannot repeat. And there's a 28-day challenge. We don't have the time to go into it, but doing the 28-day challenge, I literally see people's brains rewire in the sense that they now start to have a different outlook on life. They see things differently. They're able to recognize the things that they're grateful for. They're able to be much more optimistic. Highly recommend it. It's a game changer. And when you can focus on the things in your life for which you're grateful, your experience with people, with situations totally change simply because you're able to see the positive in so much around you. So highly recommend this. Love this point. This is a beautiful one. What's the next one?
Yeah, and then we got rest, which is separate from sleep. Our brains are not muscles, and so the brain doesn't tell itself when it's tired, unlike your other muscles that will send signals to the brain like, I need a break, I'm tired. Our brain doesn't do that for itself because it's an organ. However, based on the latest science that's out there, our brains fatigue after about 90 minutes of focused activity. And that could be sooner, it could be longer than that, just depending on the intensity of whatever task that's at hand. And so it's all about building in like little breaks throughout the day. We're not talking about hours out of your day, sprinkling little breaks whenever it's feasible for you to take that break. And what that break is about, ultimately, maybe it's that gratitude, maybe it's listening to a song that is uplifting. It's all about that uplifting piece. Maybe it's going to your camera roll to see a picture of someone who you love, or an animal that you love, or a vacation spot that you went to that you loved. But yeah, that's all about this rest piece. And the more that we do that, the science also shows that we're actually more productive and we're more efficient with the time that we do have in our day.
I love that one. I just had an interview with someone. John Briggs is a friend of mine. He wrote a book. It's 3-3. It's basically talking about this very important point. And one of the things that we dove into is that the mind can only endure what the behind can endure. And what that was meant to imply is that you can typically sit for about 3 hours comfortably. And that's about what the brain can sustain. And so if you're breaking up your day into 3-hour chunks at the most, then you're going to be able to actually accomplish a lot, being more effective, more engaged. And that's a great thing there. Okay. I think this is 8 now, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 more to go.
Yes.
And these might be my 2 favorite to work in with my clients.
I don't know, gratitude. I love gratitude, but go, number 8.
That's all great. Yeah, so number 8, it's all about expression, our expression. And what I mean by expression is our emotions, managing our emotions, or mastering these emotions. And like, we are human. As much as we don't want to believe it, we are emotional beings. And like what we have learned how to do is basically bottle everything up, suppress, whether that's how we were raised, what society tells us to do, but like, that's exactly what we shouldn't be doing. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't like blow up in real time, like in an office, for sure. I get that. But what we want to be doing is managing our emotions, so that I call it creating like an emotional highway. We want to create this highway of emotions without traffic, because there's going to be always a situation that triggers us. We're always going to be feeling something. There's always going to be a mood that we're in. Can't escape that. But as opposed to bottling it up, the idea is to, in as real time as possible, release it in a healthy way. And I say healthy because there are unhealthy fixes out there that feel good in the short term. Maybe it's that cigarette, maybe it's that drink, maybe it's that drug of choice, maybe it's that sweet, that dessert. There's all sorts of different behaviors that we do to just cope in the short term, that feel good in the moment, but long term are not sustainable for our longevity. And then release it in that healthy way. And there's so many different ways that we can do that. I have clients who journal. I have clients who write songs. I have clients who go out into nature and literally talk to trees, to the sun, just to get it out. And I could go on with other ideas, but I'll pause there on that.
Well, the one thing I'll add to this, I mean, clearly we are emotional creatures, and I think it's something to understand that we have emotions, and all emotions are good. You just need to be able to channel or use them to your benefit in a positive way, even anger. But the thing that I really want to hype on is this self-medicating thing that you were alluding to. I think we need to be very conscious of what we're doing, because some people, in an effort to self-medicate, actually get into abusive type things, and so we need to be very sensitive to or aware of what we're doing there, because addictions are not a healthy thing. You've got to be able to mindfully be aware of what you're doing and what you're imposing upon your body and your mental state. So definitely want to point that out. All right, let's go to number 9.
Yeah, so this last one is all about connection. And I talk about 3 prongs in this category. We generally think about connecting with other people as the main prong there, and 100%. Again, we are human. We're born to connect. Even the introverts out there, we are born to connect with other people who we love and trust. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that prong, because I think that the 2 other prongs are less noticed, and I like to bring these to the surface. And the second prong that I talk about is connecting to your environment. Do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you can let loose in your home environment, in your work environment, in your city, in your town, in your state even? Are you in the right place physically, environmentally? That is, like, feeling connected with that environment is really important for us. And then that third prong is all about me, not me as in Andrew O'Brien, but me as in you, connecting to yourself. And what do I mean there? What are your values? Do you know what's important to you? Do you know your personality? And if not, what are you doing to work to figure that out? Because when we know our values, when we know what's important to us, and if we could pinpoint, are we taking actions, making decisions that are out of alignment with that, 100% will lead to burnout. If we're taking actions or decisions that are in alignment with what I call that true North Star, we're going to be driven, we're going to be motivated, we're going to be riding that roller coaster and appreciating more of those highs of that life. And that personality, I mentioned the personality type work that I've recently gotten into. So much science behind that core personality of ours. And one of those telltale signs of, like, if you are on this chronic stress and burnout train right now, you know deep down inside, you know at the core that you're not yourself. That is a telltale sign that something is off here. And then you could get yourself back to that best mode. But that's that last category.
Very good. I would just end or add to that I do believe that we are social creatures, and it's not to suggest that we all need to be gravitated to a mass of people. I just think we need at least those few key individuals in our lives that we can be ourselves and be accepted and appreciated for who we are. So I'm glad that you brought up as the 9th thing, that connection point. That's very, very good. All right. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to kind of wrap up a few of the things that we've covered here, because I think this has been an amazing conversation, and I'll come back to you for a closing thought. But as it relates to our conversation today, one of the things that Andrew is offering, and I encourage you to take advantage of this, is everyone is able to take a free stress relief strategy call with Andrew. He's offering that in the episode description. Go there for the details as to what it is you can do to actually take advantage of speaking with Andrew and going through a free stress relief strategy call to actually find some tools, some techniques, some things that you can do to implement in your life to actually relieve some of the stresses you may be experiencing. And then the second thing is he's also providing for us in the episode description the relief tips that we've just gone over. The O'Brien 10 is what he calls them. He's going to go into more detail about those. And so you can go to the episode description and actually get these free stress relief tips. And I would encourage you to get that so you can have a physical copy of what these are, so that you can consciously see what it is you can do to implement them in your life. So definitely get these, share these, and go to the episode description for those. In addition, let me kind of just summarize our conversation. I thought it was nice to start at the beginning of just realizing that Andrew Andrew started this journey realizing he needed to know himself. And I think that's such a powerful thing, to know thyself. I really do believe that we need to know what makes us happy. We need to avoid those things that make us sad or frustrated. We need to know what those triggers are so that we can steer clear of the things that are pulling us down, but find the things that we can do that naturally build us up. And so if we can just be more conscious, knowing ourselves and associating with and doing the things that are positive, we could actually avoid a lot of the things that we were talking about today, which are those stresses that lead to chronic burnout. That chronic stress that is actually overwhelming, that has a physical effect on our bodies. I thought was a wonderful part of the conversation today, to realize that even though these things are perceived or naturally happening, either way, physically, we are actually manifesting what's happening around us. And so if we're just conscious of the fact that constant or consistent stress can actually have a health component to it, a negative health component, is I think is a very important thing for us to realize. The other thing is with regards to stress, we did cover the fact that it is a good thing. It is motivating. It is something that we can use to our benefit, but it has to be something that's managed or regulated. And I think that was a good insight to actually bring up today. The thing that I really appreciated, though, was the fact that we were able to then turn the tide and actually start talking about things that we can do to stay positive. And whether these are principles that we implement in our own lives or ones that we share with those that are in our employment or in our families, we need to be one of those that actually takes these 10 things and really champions them, encouraging people to actually implement in their lives these various things, such as getting outside and being active, eating right, having a good healthy routine, with regards to water, drinking enough, obviously with regards to gratitude, having a positive mindset. All of these 10 things are very real. And if we can actually consciously make sure that we're implementing them in our lives, I'm sure that we'll have not necessarily a less stressful life, but I'll say stress-free in the sense that we're able to manage it a lot better. And so with that context, Andrew, do you have a final thought for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like two final thoughts. One is like that self-compassion piece. I can't underscore enough. If you are experiencing this right now, number one, you're not alone, and number two, um, just that kindness for yourself, super super key. And number two, it just takes one small step to start this journey. And right now, if you are in that chronic stress burnout phase, that amygdala is enlarged, right? And so it may feel threatening to make this step. Totally get that. But it's science. You start to do these things, you start to incorporate these 10 domains into your life in some way, shape, or form, you are going to get back to more of that flow state, which is the goal of life.
Very, very good. Well, Andrew, it has been a pleasure. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think it's very important for our listeners to understand that these stresses that they're experiencing as they're running their businesses and that as they work with others are ones that are natural and at the same time can be managed. And so with this, I'm going to add a few things. One, personal time. Encourage you to break away, step aside from the business, find time that you can actually go out and relax and enjoy other individuals, laugh a little, but more importantly, you deserve a vacation. I give you permission to take it. That being said, I also want to encourage you to go to the episode descriptions for additional information that's available by Universal Accounting Center. They are the sponsor of this show, and Universal Accounting Center has some additional free information that you want to take advantage of there, one of which I would encourage you to do, which is getting your business score. The business score is similar to kind of like a SWOT analysis or a personality assessment of your company. Basically, it shows the strengths and the areas of opportunity that you need to consider as you're running your business. So go now to the episode description and take advantage of getting your free business score. That being said, I also want to invite you as a listener of the podcast to subscribe. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you as someone who's following us and getting the notifications each and every week when we have on the experts to address those various things that we need to be considering as we're running and building the premier accounting firms in our area. Now, as it relates to the show itself, I want you to go to universalaccounting.com. There you can find in the navigation podcast information such as highlights. These are playlists that we've compiled for you to binge listen to those things that are relevant to your current situation, whether it's marketing, sales, staff training, tech stacks, mental health. There's a variety of playlists there that you can take advantage of, and I would encourage you to do so. That also brings me to GrowCon. If you haven't already registered, we would love to have you join us for GrowCon. It's an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's at that conference that we have on the stage the experts, those individuals that we need to be listening to. It's there where we also meet with our peers and interact with those with whom whom we can collaborate and actually basically find out what's working for them as we're working on our business. And then lastly, you get to meet my team, those individuals at Universal Accounting Center that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So join us for GrowCon. Register now, and I look forward to seeing you there. As it relates to today's show, if you'd like more information on these topics and others as it relates to working on your business, give us a phone call. You can reach us at 1-800, or excuse me, not 1-800, at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. That being said, I appreciate you listening in today. Have a wonderful day, and always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and be safe out there. Andrew, that was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Roger.
You betcha. So here's what I'm going to have you do now. Go to the chat, and you're going to see there that promo. I'm going to have you record that right now.
Okay. The promo. All right. So I feel like it looks like I'm reading it, but we'll try. So this is Andrew O'Brien. It was awesome to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed all sorts of ways that we can master our own stress, use these 10 domains of science, apply these 10 domains of science into our lives, and so that you can master that stress to ultimately master that life of yours. And I invite you to listen and join us.